After 200 years of fighting between humans and vampires, they finally signed a ceasefire agreement. As a gesture of sincerity, humans decided to send a person over to be adopted by the vampire Duke's family. And that unlucky person is me. Ding! Wisnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. During the 200 years of confrontation with vampires, humans have modified and evolved their genes. I, on the other hand, am one of the few purebred humans. A pure human with no strength and zero combat power. In the past, I would have been considered useless. But now, I have unexpectedly become a mascot. I have no right to resist, so I was packed up overnight and sent to the castle of the vampire Duke Dracula. Before leaving, a kind-hearted old man patted my shoulder with a smile. Girl, you've seen undercover movies, right? You don't need to do anything, just observe if they really intend to cease fire. I focused and heard his inner voice. This girl is indeed beautiful, but she seems not very smart. I hope she won't mess things up. I chuckled. Surprised, aren't you? Although I am a useless purebred human, I also have a trump card, mind reading. Otherwise, what's the difference between me going alone to the vampire territory and entering the lion's den? I finally met the Duke's family. It's not quite like the humans sang in the songs 200 years ago. The Dracula castle is not gloomy and desolate at all. On the contrary, it is magnificent and luxurious, with bright lights. The butler is not a talking pig. Also, there are no fat witches riding brooms, and there are no black cats that laugh like they are crying. I have to say, the vampire race is really good looking, incredibly handsome. The Duke is noble and handsome, and the Duchess is extremely beautiful. Their only son, Winston, is exceptionally handsome, with deep dark eyes, cold white skin, and lips as red as blood. He has clearly a vivid and colorful face, yet his temperament seems very restrained. They held a grand welcome banquet for me. During the banquet, the Duke publicly announced that he was adopting me, making me the first human princess of the vampire race. The entire banquet was live-streamed, instantly becoming a hot topic on the internet. Before coming, I was very afraid of becoming a mobile blood bank for the Dracula family. So when they invited me to have dinner together, I was trembling with fear. The Duchess's eyes flowed with warmth as she smiled charmingly. Darling, don't be afraid. The noble Dracula family no longer feeds on human blood, especially now that you are my daughter. She is so cute, I could kiss 10 of such cute humans. The Duke patiently reassured me. Sweetheart, rest assured, we will not harm you. His dark green eyes shimmered, gazing at me gently. She seems very insecure. Should I go and kidnap a few humans to keep her company? Winston is not suitable. He always has a deadpan expression, very boring. Come to think of it, I haven't raised a child in centuries. I wonder what children like nowadays. Whatever she wants, I will buy it for her. After listening to their inner voices, I was a bit at sea. So the cruel and bloodthirsty Duke and Duchess are actually doting parents? Finally, when it was time to sit down, I chose to sit next to Winston. At least my non-blood-related brother seems more like a normal person. In response to my initiative, Winston remained expressionless and indifferent, with a cold and aloof demeanor, not saying a word. He seemed extremely aloof. I hesitated for a moment, tugged at his clothes, and gave him a friendly smile. Brother Winston. To my surprise, Winston reacted strongly, abruptly standing up and shaking me off. Let go. I was about to cry. A hint of regret flashed in Winston's eyes. Is she going to cry? Damn it, I didn't mean to. Her eyes are so beautiful, red, with a layer of mist, like a delicate little rabbit. She smells so good. No, I must restrain myself. I can't scare her. As his inner voices burst out one after another, the corners of his eyes flushed, and a blush slowly spread across his pale face. My face became increasingly pale. Help! What kind of strange family have I encountered? This meal ended with Winston leaving early and the Duke and Duchess comforting me in every possible way. At night, I lay in the beautiful princess room prepared by the Duchess, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. I couldn't help but get up and go to the kitchen in the dark to find something to eat. Just as I reached the corridor, before I could react, I was suddenly pulled into the next room by a hand. My vampire brother pinned me against the wall. His hair was damp with sweat, his face flushed, and his dark eyes glistening with moisture, staring at me. He looked like a delicious black truffle cake. I couldn't help but swallow nervously. Brother Winston, what's wrong? Are you sick? He buried his face in my neck, his heavy breath hitting my neck, causing a tingling sensation. He still spoke in a cold and grumpy tone. Shut up. I like her so much. What should I do? Oh no. After the impact of the inner voices during dinner, I'm already numb now. Is this brother's inner voice taking the root of shame? The contrast between appearance and inner thoughts is too great, isn't it? Definitely complaining on the surface, but secretly enjoying it. After confirming that he didn't mean to harm me, I let go of half of my suspended heart. I obediently acted as a human pillow, not moving, letting him hold me. As a result, my mind was filled with his inner voices like a barrage of bullets. Have I been hugging her for too long? Is it a bit strange? But it's really hard to push her away. The Dracula family has long given up human blood. Why am I? At this moment, I felt something sharp against my neck. Restraint and aggression seemed to be pulling at him. Suddenly, I understood. Those were the sharp fangs of a vampire. In an instant, I felt felt completely helpless. She is truly fascinating. She seems to be trembling. Is she afraid? That's enough. Winston, stop here. He finally let go of me. I breathed a sigh of relief. The next second, he waved his hand and threw me out of the room. The door slammed shut with a heavy thud. I felt like I was suddenly flying, and in an instant, I was in the corridor. I was dizzy. When I calmed down, I pondered. Although his series of confusing actions were both rude and impatient, I was unharmed. He shouldn't hurt me, right? I woke up the next day and went downstairs. The Duke and Duchess were not there, and I didn't even see Winston. The butler came over and explained to me politely, "Your Highness, the Duke and Duchess are still resting. They instructed me to let you have breakfast first, and then the young Master Winston will take you to school." I looked at the butler's gentle smile and nodded lightly, pretending not to hear his inner monologue. What on earth is the Duke thinking? The young Master Winston is not exactly friendly to Miss Ethel. Several kinds of breakfast were brought in by the servants. Pancakes, fried dough sticks, rice noodles, crab roe buns. Everything I could think of was there, which amazed me. These were all the foods I would see in the human library. Now, after human genetic evolution, they are obsessed with power and not very concerned about food. Many people are used to maintaining their bodily functions with nutrient solution. Only nobles, in order to show their power and status, would cook gourmet food every day. Of course, I was not eligible to eat, but I am a purebred human. That awful nutrient solution is simply like poison. Until now, I finally had a real feeling that my fate was changing. As I was enjoying breakfast, Winston came down the stairs in his school uniform, walking slowly. I almost burst out laughing when I saw him. The school uniform was well tailored and looked very noble and gentlemanly, as long as he didn't wear that weird mask. I held back my laughter and stole a glance at him again. His features were still beautiful, but was that thing on his mouth really not a dog's muzzle? At this moment, I heard Winston's inner voice. Is this muzzle really strange? But it's the most handsome one. Why does she keep looking at me? Does she seem like she wants to laugh? I couldn't help it and burst into laughter. Wow, it really is a dog muzzle. Because of that untimely smile, on the way to school, Winston remained cold as ice towards me the whole time. But I wasn't afraid of him at all. He was afraid of losing control and hurting me, so he would rather wear this ugly and strange muzzle. Winston is like a hedgehog. His back is full of spines, but when turned over, his belly is soft and harmless. I could feel the tenderness and gentleness beneath his cold shell. The butler, perhaps fearing we would fight, also got into the car with us. During the journey, the butler briefed me on relevant matters. Tis school is the top aristocratic school among the vampire community. The students are all young ladies and gentlemen from noble families. But Your Highness, you are the most distinguished among them. The highest leader of the vampire race is the Duke. There is no king or queen. So the butler said I was the most noble. There are prohibitions in the school. Vampire abilities are ineffective inside the school, so you don't have to worry about being harmed by them. With the enthusiastic and detailed introduction from the butler, I understood everything that needed to be understood and those that didn't. This is a comprehensive school that combines junior high, high school, and university, and has produced many top talents, spanning various industries in vampire society. I was a freshman at the Academy of Fine Arts before, and I'll continue my studies here. Tis has produced many outstanding artists, and I've heard of them before. This is a big step up for me. Winston is studying at the medical school. He is the most talented student in the medical school and is about to graduate. As I spoke, I glanced at Winston. My gaze involuntarily fell on his hands resting lightly on his lap, fair and slender, with distinct joints. Such beautiful hands, quite suitable for holding a surgical knife. Sensing my gaze, Winston's expression became even more indifferent, and he turned to look out the window. His fingers unconsciously clenched into a fist. Damn it, why did Merlin mention me? Would Ethel think I had instructed him to brag for me? After hearing his inner voices, I felt like laughing again. After arriving at the school, Winston, noble and aloof, warned me, behave yourself and don't cause trouble. I've already greeted those old folks, so there shouldn't be any problem, right? I smiled brightly and said, okay, brother. Winston hastily averted his gaze, his white jade-like earlobes blushing, and turned away expressionless, almost fleeing. Ethel, she is so adorable. The butler handed me my bag with a smile. Your Highness, please go in. I can only escort you this far. I tilted my head and smiled. Thank you, Mr. Merlin. The butler's eyes lit up. Your Highness can just call me Merlin. No wonder the Duke and Duchess are so fond of Miss Ethel. She's really a good kid. I walked into the school holding my bag. I turned heads all the way, and I could always hear their inner voices. Oh my, is this a human being? Is she Princess Ethel Walsh? She looks just like in the live broadcast. For a moment, it seemed like there were tens of thousands of flies buzzing in my ears. I couldn't stand it, so I blocked out those voices in my mind. My telepathy is controllable, like a switch. If I don't want to hear what's in others' minds, I can shut it off. Otherwise, I'd go crazy sooner or later. The principal personally received me and led me to the class, giving me a few words of advice before leaving. I smiled and friendly introduced myself to everyone. My name is Ethel Walsh, 19 years, and I live in the Dracula castle. There was a sneer from the crowd, a blonde, blue-eyed girl stood up and looked at me disdainfully. "Are all you human women as ugly as you?" The classroom fell silent for a second. Then, the classmates burst into laughter. They looked at me with mocking, indifferent, or disdainful eyes. Vampires, whether male or female, were all fair-skinned, beautiful, and had long legs. It was their racial talent, but I wasn't inferior either. Standard almond-shaped eyes, big and round. Even if I couldn't compare to the unearthly beauty of vampires, was it necessary to call me ugly? I gritted my teeth. I must endure it. This was the vampires' territory. How could they possibly accept a fake human princess like me? I had anticipated this situation before coming and prepared myself mentally. Adhering to the principle of not causing trouble, I smiled and remained silent. But the blonde girl was not going to let me off the hook. She walked up to me and pulled my hair. "Hey, ugly freak, go back to your human territory, or I'll drain your blood sooner or later." Damn it, I couldn't take it anymore. I fought with her until the teacher hurried over to stop us. Just like humans, vampires also had to inform their parents when they fought. My parent was Winston. The teacher didn't dare disturb the Duke and Duchess, so he called Winston over. I hung my head dejectedly, standing with disheveled hair in front of him. He had just warned me not to cause trouble, but then I got into a fight with my classmates. Why couldn't I control myself at that time? Winston furrowed his brow, his black eyes scanning me up and down, and turned to the teacher, his voice cold and piercing. "What's going on here?" I really couldn't handle his emotions. I secretly activated the eavesdropping device to listen to his inner voice. Is the Bluette family tired of living too long? How dare they turn my lovely and pretty sister into a dirty mess? I was feeling quite wronged at first, but hearing dirty mess, I almost lost it again. The teacher explained that Catherine had provoked me, and I had retaliated against her. The golden-haired girl's name was Catherine Bluette, the apple of the finance minister's eye. She was usually arrogant and domineering, a typical brainless beauty with a well-endowed figure. In front of Winston, she even arrogantly complained to her father, George Bluette. "Dad, this human woman dared to hit me. You must help me teach her a lesson." George directly slapped her across the face. Catherine was stunned, covering her face and standing still, unable to react for a while. Ignoring her, George instead apologetically said to Winston, "Your Highness Winston, it's my incompetence in teaching my child. Please punish me." He was a cunning old fox. He immediately took action after sensing Winston's displeasure. After all, it was better to take matters into his own hands than to be controlled by others. Sure enough, Winston could only suppress his anger and coldly said, "Take Catherine back and confine her for a month." George nodded repeatedly. The matter should have ended there, but Catherine was not convinced. Her slow reflexes finally kicked in, and her face was full of disbelief and tears. "Dad, you actually hit me for this human?" she cried, throwing herself at Winston. "Winston, we grew up together. Why are you helping this ugly woman?" Oh, they were childhood sweethearts. My eyes rolled back and forth between the two of them. I had to admit, they did make a good-looking pair. Unfortunately, Catherine lacked grace and brains. Winston took a step back, distancing himself from Catherine, and his cold, ruthless voice rang out. "She is Ethel Walsh, the princess of the vampire race, my sister." Catherine burst into tears. What kind of nonsense princess is she? Winston's patience wore even thinner, and he interrupted her emotionlessly. Add another month to her confinement. So annoying. I really want to twist her head off, but all I can do is confine her. Damn it. Catherine was dragged away by her father. The matter was finally resolved, without offending either side. The teacher was extremely satisfied and left, leaving me and Winston facing each other in the same spot. On the first day of school, Winston took me to skip class and went to the mall. The mall was built in a Rococo style, with pink and white walls. Extravagant, gorgeous, delicate, it should be very popular with ladies and misses. Because of Winston's arrival, the entire mall was cleared out in advance. We only sat in the VIP room, and the managers of various brands would bring their latest season's clothes for me to try on. But I refused and wanted to shop by myself. Of course, shopping should be done by oneself, otherwise, what's the fun? Although Winston had a poker face, he accompanied me the whole time. After shopping all afternoon, I restyled myself, changed into a dress, and came out of the fitting room looking refreshed. I held up the hem of my dress and trotted up to Winston and asked with a smile, "Winston, am I pretty?" Winston's deep black eyes stared at me for several seconds. I smiled smugly. Little did I know, he turned around and called the butler, "Bring a new school uniform for Ethel." After shopping for half a day, "You want me to wear a school uniform? Are you teasing me?" Then I heard Winston's inner voice in my mind like a pervert. "Ethel is so pretty, I won't let anyone else see." My anger dissipated in an instant.